Okay, it is 11 o'clock. Monday, let's call this meeting to order, please. First thing we need to do is recognize our new commission member, Leonard Lenny Cristo. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you on board with us.
Thank you for joining, sir.
Yes, we appreciate you helping us out. It's an important function, so the more people we have involved, the better. Thank you. Next on the line, we have the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to go through those minutes?
Yes, sir, I did.
If there's any questions, comments, concerns?
Nope. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's unanimous. Minutes are approved. We'll sign them at the end here to make them official.
Yes.
Next will be the approval of the daily action log.
I've added the daily action logs to your packets. There are a couple of them on the very top part of the daily action log that was missed on the last meeting. So we've added them on there, so we've got record of them.
Any questions, comments on the daily action log?
No, sir. I'll make a motion to approve the daily action log as presented.
We have a motion to accept as
Second it.
presented and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
That's good.
Approved.
And JJ, number 5 on the agenda, we are going to pull this and not discuss this today. We may be bringing that back,
Oh,
but we're going to jump right over number 5 and move on to number 6.
oh, okay. Okay. Item number 6, the consideration of appeals from Fire Department promotional exam administered on March 7, 2025.
Yes, sir. So in your packets, we've got the first appeal. It was appeal for exam question 49. If you'll take a look, the appeal form, it's a 3-page form. So I'm going to give you all the opportunity to read through this. So we'll have a few minutes of silence while you read through that. But the appeal is listed first. Immediately following that is the test writer response, and I'll get into that as soon as y'all finish the appeal, reading that to yourselves. So let me know when you're finished and we'll move forward. Okay, I believe everybody's had the opportunity to read through the appeal. If you flip to the next page, we've got the lieutenant's exam question 49, as it was listed on the exam. The instructions say that questions 35 through 51 were taken from the Fire Department Incident Safety Officer, 3rd edition, by David Dodson. It says to select the best answer for questions 35 through 51 based solely upon the material presented in this source. Question 49, when dealing with a wildland fire, a constant minimum flame height of over blank feet is considered too intense for a direct attack on the head of the fire, page 195. A, 2, B, 4, C, 6, and D, 8. So the following page I have from the textbook that it's referring to. Test writer's response says, the question is directly from the book out of the highlighted awareness tips section. In the awareness tips section, the author describes the dangers found at different flame heights. Less than 4 feet, the fire can generally be attacked directly using hand lines and tools. 4 to 8 feet, the fire is too intense for a direct attack on the head. 8 to 11 feet, the fire presents serious control problems. Direct fire attacks are dangerous. So it's asking for the minimum flame height that would be considered too intense for a direct attack. The statements in the awareness tips section clearly state that flame heights under 4 feet are okay, but 4 feet and above are too intense for a direct attack. This is again from the test writer. He lists that the test taker argues that 8 feet is the correct answer. The test taker would be correct if the question simply asked, at what height would it be too intense for a direct attack? In fact, any number above 4 feet would be correct. However, the question asks for the minimum flame height at which it becomes too intense for a direct attack. The only correct answer for question 49 is answer B, 4 feet. I believe we have the appellant here. If there are any questions, the appellant would like to add anything additional, you could approach the stand.
Hello, Joshua Kemp. I do have some clarification here if there needs to be any. In addition, I will just make this brief and thank you guys for coming and reading that long dissertation there. So first off, I just want to start with an example. I know we're not all firefighters here, so an example, let's use an example of a speed limit, right? If I gave you an example, said the speed limit of less than 50 miles per hour, the speed is too slow for driving a vehicle on the roadway. At speed limits 50 to 80 miles per hour, this speed is the legal driving speed for a vehicle on the highway. And if the question was, when driving on a highway, a constant minimum speed of over blank miles per hour is considered the legal driving speed, what would the answer be? The answer is a range between 50 and 80 miles an hour. Just as if this question, if you answer this question the same way, the answer would be a range between 4 and 8 miles per hour. 4 and 8 feet. I do understand what the test taker is saying in his response to me, and I would like to address that as well. Back to my example real quick. If I say that I'm driving a constant minimum speed of 55 miles an hour, would I be driving within the legal speed limit? The answer is yes, I would. Okay, so anything between, it doesn't change the answer just because the test writer inserts 2 words in there, which is constant minimum. It does not change that the answer is between 4 and 8 feet. That's always going to remain the answer, at least compared to the source material. Okay. The second point here, the test writer's response to my appeal. Again, as thank you, Christine, read out to us the test writer's response. And I'm just going to just go to the very bottom sentence here. Actually, no. Let me start with the beginning. The test writer says this question came directly from the book. There is words that are directly from the book, but there also is words that are directly from the book in another section. Actually, not even another section. The same page, page 195. As you see in my dissertation there, if you'll read 2 sentences below. It says, and let me pull it up so that way I don't misquote. It says, "The observation of flaring with flame lengths over 8 feet can be considered an imminent threat if initial attack crews are attempting a head-on fire attack." Okay, so if we're studying thousands of pages of material, and that is the only constant minimum number in that whole entire page. If you look through that entire page there, you'll see that that's the only constant or minimum reference number. But we'll get to that a little bit more here in just a second. The very last sentence here, that the test writer's response to my appeal was, "However, the question asks for the minimum flame height." That is correct. That is what he asked for. But he also inserts in there, in his statement, "at which it becomes." In a question, does it say anywhere "at which it becomes"? It does not. So therefore, you can't add in additional information after the question was already written, after the test was already taken. That "at which it becomes" changes the question entirely. That's not the same question as what he asked us on the test. Okay? Therefore, that is actually incorrect as well. That is not what the question is asking. You may say that it's what it infers. Okay, if we're going to talk about inferences, then we're talking about you can infer a lot of things. Kind of like potentially somebody could say, well, I inferred that the observation of flaring with flame lengths over 8 feet can be considered an imminent threat if initial attack crews are attempting a head-on fire attack. It's still discussing a head-on fire attack. It's actually giving you an over 8 feet, over implying a minimum number. And it talks about the flame lengths. Okay? Imminent threat, I don't have, I will say that was also discussed in this book. I will let you guys make your own conclusion on that because I didn't write any more information on that at this point. But an imminent threat just means it's something so dangerous that you must have that you must do a firm intervention. Something must happen in order to stop this imminent threat from happening. Okay. My next thing here is again, since the awareness tip box ranges between 4 and 8 feet, the only place on page 195, which is the reference material, the only place on 195 that points to a constant minimum number is 8 feet. Again, if the question is, as it's stated, which is, when dealing with a wildland fire, a constant minimum flame height of over blank feet is considered too intense for a direct attack on the head of the fire. Again, that does not change the answer. It would still be 4, 6, or 8. That's too ambiguous of a question, okay? If we're going to pick the best possible answer, it would be 8 feet, because that is the only spot on page 195 that we have a constant or a minimum number of a flame height. That's discussing a head-on fire attack. Finally, we can discuss and it was in my appeal there, flaring. Flaring refers to an imminent, flaring refers to an intermittent number, not a constant number argument, okay? So somebody could argue here and say, well, flaring is talking about an intermittent number, not a constant number. If we look, though, further and we see the sentence just above the sentence that I'm referencing on page 195, the author says, by evaluating wildland fire behavior, and gives 3 examples of wildland fire behavior. The 3 examples are potential for blowup, signs of flaring, and flame length. So the very next sentence you would infer, if that's what we're doing for this question, is you would infer that the discussion of the observation of flaring is one point, and the observation of with flame lengths is another point. Therefore, the only possible answer to this question is 8 feet. Again, in conclusion, the reason why we're here is to make sure that this thing is as fair as possible. and that we get to take the test in the best, most fair way that we can. And that our questions are answered in the most fair, best way that they can be answered. Unfortunately, sometimes whenever the test writer or anybody who is writing this test tries to make it where it is so complicated that all of our people are within a few points here or there in number-wise, which we were, then potentially that's where we run into the problem of the test writer trying to make the question a little bit ambiguous, but still putting a correct answer in there might incidentally provide an incorrect answer as well. So again, I would just encourage you guys to please review that, the information that I gave to you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we know, oh, sorry. A quick question. Do we know how many people took the test and how many got this question correct?
Yes, it's considered high miss.
Sir? I'm sorry?
Somebody got it correct?
I want to, if there's, I don't know how many applicants there were, how many of the applicants, like, if there was 10 people who took the test,
I believe 7, and it was hard, I know 3 that got correct. Me and 2 other people, I know that bad.
so 4 out of 7 got it wrong, basically.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hello, my name is John Sanchez. I also took the test. I know that myself and then 3 other people got it correct. I'm not sure of any others, but I did get it correct, and I would like to keep the question as is, if possible. Thank you.
I believe when I looked at this, there was 4 people that got it correct. I don't know what the other answers were selected on the ones that got it incorrect.
So 4 out of 7 got it correct, basically.
Yeah, like how many chose 6, how many chose 4, how many chose 8?
I've got 4 out of the 7 getting it right.
Okay, oh, 4 out of 7, sorry.
You ready for me now, Christine?
Yes, sir.
Patrick Brody, Fire Chief. 100% see Mr. Kemp's perspective on this, and reading through this several different times and reading through it from different lenses, can see where he could have determined that 8 was the correct answer there. But after reading through the source material, we're going to stand by the test writer. I believe that that is the correct interpretation. Any questions for me?
Are there, okay, I'm a test writer, we do test analysis, used to do test analysis, and there were levels of test questions, basic knowledge, the ability to relate information, et cetera, et cetera. Are these structured the same way, where is it basic, just yes or no type questions, or would they have to relate material and consider other options and come up with a conclusion?
That would be Christine's. We don't have much contact with the test writer other than giving him the source material.
Okay.
But I do know that whenever he's developing these tests, he does do multiple different levels of test questions. Right. Some of them are straight word for word out of the book. Some of them is going to be a paraphrase of an entire but an entire page. Right. To determine an answer. But to get specifics, that would be Christine.
And I unfortunately don't have a breakdown of those types of questions, how many are straightforward and so forth. We give him the test material and he presents the test to us.
So I will tell you that there is different, the way I know that there are different level questions. Some of them are just like this, which is your best answer? And then some of the more difficult questions is something that we refer to as a multiple choice, being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 statements. And then your answer selection is A, B, C, D. 1 and 2 is correct, 1, 2, and 3 is correct, 1 and 4 is correct. So it really brings in a whole new complexity to that test question, because it's not even all statements are correct or all statements are false. So, anyways,
Is this open book?
Thank you.
no.
No. Oh, okay.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I would encourage you to take a look at page, before y'all make y'all decision, take a look at page 195 and look at that area that Mr. Kemp was discussing where it says constant 8 feet. And like I said, before y'all make y'all's decision, look at that so you can see he is correct. Whenever you're sitting and taking the test, it doesn't say this question came from this chart. So you're taking thousands of pages of information and you're trying to figure out, well, which section did he pull this question from? And it's a little difficult. So I can see his perspective of, well, I've got all this reference information. Did he pull it from the chart or did he pull it from the text? So he made his decision based on from the text rather than the chart. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Brody. I will say that Chief Brody is partially correct on that. He is correct in saying that, you know, we do have a lot of information and that we did, I chose the text out of that instead of but he was incorrect about saying instead of the box, because I did actually, if we had my test, I wrote on my test 4 to 8 feet on my test that we were able to write on. So I knew, in fact, that the answer was 4 to 8 feet. However, that answer was not a choice, so then you have to go to the next best thing, which is in the text where it says, where it gives you an actual number. The actual number is 8 feet. So that's how I came to that conclusion. Thank you.
I'm good to support what the Chief said.
If y'all would like to discuss, you certainly can. If anybody would like to make a motion, you're more than welcome to do that now.
Questions or remarks or, 'cause, you know, when we did test analysis, we had a degree of difficulty for the test. You know, history, how many people passed, how many people failed. Obviously, that's not all available, so it's kind of hard to make that decision, but are the tests, do they change every year? Do the tests change every year, basically?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
The test bank.
okay. So it's possible this question wasn't asked previously, or maybe it was.
It is possible.
It is possible, okay.
I'd have to look.
But we
into
don't have all that, okay.
So I'm guessing, just for discussion's sake, we're talking about constant and minimum. I guess those are the two words that are being discussed. Constant and minimum. And so, listen to Mr. Kemp, the chief, you know, just trying to put in perspective. So he's, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing he's, from my understanding, when I'm looking at these numbers, it says 4 to 8 feet and then 8 to 11 feet. I'm guessing since they both 4 to 8 feet and 8 to 11 feet, the constant minimum, and I'm not a firefighter, and I'm just trying to get some guidance, is the minimum would be the 8 feet, hence why he answered the question, 8. He said he knew the answer from 4 to 8. Again, we're talking about constant minimum, not a firefighter, so I just need some clarification on the constant minimum. I understand the minimum part, which would be 4 feet. It's just a constant that I'm just, yes, sir. Because I think that's what you're debating.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Muncy. That actually, therein lies the problem with the entire question, is that's what makes the question irrelevant and should be considered either thrown out or the answer should be 8. And that, nowhere in this page does it define what constant or minimum is. Nowhere in the entire text that I know of, when it's talking about wildland firefighting, and I know that material very well, says anything about a constant or minimum or defines what constant or minimum is. Again, the only definition is on the previous page, 174. I don't know if y'all have that information in front of you. It'll be on the, or 194, it'll be on that book right there. But in that book, it discusses flaring as an intermittent number, but nowhere does it talk anything about a constant or the definition of constant or minimum as it refers to flame lengths.
Okay, thank you. Good.
So my interpretation of it was, so on this chart that it refers to in the book, it gives you a range, less or 0 all the way up to 4 feet, and then 4 to 8 feet. And the reason why it's in that range is because you'll have a consistent fire that will have flaring from time to time. And that's how I interpreted the constant. Okay, it's constantly at 4 feet, but occasionally it'll flare up to 8 feet.
Gotcha.
And then the two key words, and you hit it right on the head, Mr. Mancias, the constant and the minimum. So the minimum would be the 4 feet, and because if it drops below that 4 feet, the constant burning level would drop below that 4 feet. But if, and then the maximum would be up to 8 feet during that range of flaring and then de-escalation. But that's how I interpreted of it, the constant being the low number of each one of those different ranges. And then the minimum, well, what is the minimum of each one of those ranges?
Okay, thank you.
But again, that's just how I interpreted the
Yes, sir.
material.
Thank you.
Can I respond? Thank you, Chief Brody. The thing with that is, again, is that's looking directly at that chart. That chart says, yes, I don't disagree with that. We all know the chart says 4 to 8 feet. We've seen that, we can see it there. But you cannot disregard the rest of the information in that source material. If we disregard the rest of that information, that source material, what is the point? Can we not just get, here's what your source material is, and answer the question off from that? Because if that was the case, then yes, we could answer that appropriately. However, we cannot make that answer appropriately because that information is not directly in there. Again, like Chief Brody said, as he said, that's his interpretation of it. If that's what we're testing on is interpretation of the information, then are we trying to be judges? No, we're not. We are testing off the knowledge of facts. It actually says that in Civil Service 143 and in our local code. If you look there, the testing is supposed to be based off from facts and not perceptions. So, thank you.
On the appeal form, the candidate had listed that what they were liking the outcome to be is for the answer to be changed to D. You can do that. You can take another option. If you decide that maybe you want to allow multiple answers to be correct, if you want to have the test question thrown out, or if you want to keep it as is, that it is a correct answer, you can do that as well.
So I know if you eliminate a question, that changes the grading scale, and some people that previously passed may not pass. And if you allow it, again, somebody who didn't pass, so there's repercussions either way you do that. And I am not a firefighter, but yeah, I'm trying to stick to the words here.
I'm good with what Chief said.
Make a motion?
Yeah.
So-
Go
ahead.
Can I motion? I motion to accept the question as is and move forward.
Accept the answer as correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll make a second just because I feel when we talked about constant minimum, I hope you don't mind, I can.
Sure.
Constant minimum, when we talked about constant minimum, and y'all did a good job presenting that, is because the constant minimum would be at a 4. The constant maximum, I guess, before it changes into the next category, would be the 8. So the constant minimum, to me, would be the 4 at the far end. So that's why I second motion.
Okay, well, we have a motion to accept the question as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carries 2-1.
Thank you.
2-1.
Okay, for the second appeal, we've got that in the next packet. The question at hand, I'll go ahead and read that first. Question 91, instructions for this question say questions 85 through 100 were taken from the San Angelo Fire Department EMS protocols. Select the best answer for questions 85 through 100 based solely upon the material presented in this source. Question 91 reads, your patient is an 80-year-old male who is pulseless and I may need some help on that. Apneic. His wife stated that he just got done with dialysis and she found him like this. In suspected hyperkalemia patients, what should be immediately administered? Page 35. Your options are A, 1 gram calcium chloride rapid IVP, B, 50 MEQ sodium bicarbonate IVP, C is 100 MEQ sodium bicarbonate IVP, and D is 2 grams calcium chloride rapid IVP. I'll let y'all read through the appeal, and then we'll get to the test writer response. I believe everybody's got through the appeal. Test writer response is as follows. The text taken from the San Angelo EMS protocols on page 35 states, patient is pulseless and apneic. Precordial thump may be used in witnessed arrest. If arrest is perceived as being traumatic in nature, initiate this guideline and reference traumatic arrest guideline for additional procedures. In suspected hyperkalemia, i.e. dialysis patients, immediately administer 1 gram calcium chloride rapid IVP. The question clearly describes an 80-year-old diabetic patient who is pulseless and apneic. According to the San Angelo EMS protocols, the immediate initial treatment is to administer 1 gram calcium chloride rapid IVP. The test taker argues that answer B, 50 MEQ sodium bicarbonate IVP, should also be correct. The patient was described as in cardiac arrest, which changes your treatment plan. Calcium is the immediate drug needed for this patient. If the patient was alive with signs and symptoms of hyperkalemia, then the sodium bicarbonate would also be a possible treatment. The protocol above clearly states, if arrest is perceived as being traumatic in nature, initiate this guideline and then reference traumatic arrest guidelines for additional procedures. In this instance, the protocol states to immediately administer 1 gram calcium chloride rapid IVP and then reference the traumatic arrest guideline for additional procedures. The only correct answer for question 91 is answer A, 1 gram calcium chloride rapid IVP. We have included the cardiac arrest chart that's referenced right behind that. Are there any questions? The appellant is here.
Well, just
If anybody-
clarification, you talk cardiac arrest, pulseless, and apneic, that equates to cardiac arrest, just so I understand. Okay, I just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at. Okay.
Sure.
John, will you turn on the mic?
Okay. My name is John Sanchez. The question was, your patient's an 80-year-old male who is pulseless and apneic. Basically, they're not breathing, their heart's not working, they're basically dead. It states that the wife found him when he was done with dialysis, and then it immediately goes to, in suspected hyperkalemia, what should you immediately administer? Hyperkalemia is excess of potassium in the blood, which can cause arrhythmias that could lead to cardiac arrest. Dialysis, in order to be on dialysis, you have to be in end-stage renal failure, and part of dialysis is reducing those potassium levels in your blood. He found this on page 35, and he stated, it does say 1 gram of calcium chloride, because calcium chloride would help protect the heart in that case. But in the question, he stated that they were post-dialysis. You went to dialysis to reduce your potassium levels, so in reality, you would be more likely hypokalemic at that point. I put B, 50 milliequivalents of sodium bicarb, and if you look on page 28 of your medical protocols, it also states in indications, if suspected hyperkalemia, you would give 50 milliequivalents of 50 milliequivalents of sodium bicarb. Like I said, calcium chloride helps protect the heart. Sodium bicarb would also be used to help get that potassium level down. Both will be used. The test writer, he responded, perhaps an oversight on his part. He states, the question clearly describes an 80-year-old diabetic patient. On the question page of 91, you're talking about a dialysis patient, somebody who's in end-stage renal failure. So perhaps just an oversight. He maybe meant to say dialysis, but he put diabetic on there. Later on, he describes, because he did say this, that the husband was found unresponsive. He states the patient was described as in cardiac arrest, which changes your treatment. So if they're in cardiac arrest, you would immediately go to ALS, and your initial drug of choice would be Epi, 1 milligram. Based on this, when I read the question, to me it was more of a dosage question, so I looked at it as knowing my dosages and what medications and how much to give. The only answer choices are calcium chloride and sodium bicarb, which both of those could be correct. But if it's about policy or procedure, you're going to initiate CPR, check for a pulse, and you're going to give Epi before you do these other drugs. You're going to treat it like anything else. So I would ask that you either dismiss the question because there's 2 right answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mason Matthews, I'm the EMS administrator. Obviously, have an intricate relationship with the protocols. I don't like, just kind of speaking to, I don't like his reasoning. He referenced traumatic cardiac arrest. This is not a traumatic arrest, first of all. This would be a medical cardiac arrest. There is issues there, both of them, both in the protocols. It does reference calcium chloride for hypokalemia, and so does sodium bicarb. The difference is in the actual protocols, calcium chloride is the only one that's referenced for cardiac arrest. Sodium bicarb just says hyperkalemia. It does not reference cardiac arrest specifically. John was absolutely correct, and I know that Epi's not one of the answers, but in all cardiac arrest, the first-line medication is epinephrine, but obviously that is not one of the answer choices there. So just kind of giving some reference to all of it, but it does, in the first, if y'all have the protocols there, if you go to the very beginning where it lists the medications and lists what they're listed for, I believe calcium chloride is the only one that says cardiac arrest. But they are both given in hyperkalemia.
Thank you.
So I'll start off and ask y'all, do y'all have protocol page 28, page 26, and page 35?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we, of course, we go back to the heart of the question. Pulseless, apneic, so cardiac arrest, non-traumatic, and then it also even points you in the direction of hypokalemia, which they didn't have to put that in the question, but that certainly points you in the hyperkalemia protocol. So there's 2 different protocols that deal with hyperkalemia, 2 different medications. Mr. Matthews already touched on that, one being sodium bicarbonate and the other one being calcium chloride. Again, this is a difficult process while you're taking the exam because you don't know if he's pulling from protocol on page 35 or page 28. But the key to this question is the pulseless apneic cardiac arrest patient. So if this was traumatic, then of course you would have jumped over to page 49 through 50, but it's atraumatic, so you don't even consider going to page 49 or 50. The key to this question, pulseless apneic cardiac arrest, and if you look at the two protocols, sodium bicarbonate, there is nothing referenced under that medication for cardiac arrest being the primary indication for it. Or calcium chloride, when you review that medication protocol, cardiac arrest secondary to hyperkalemia, 1 gram rapid IVP. So then you reference, if you look at page 35, it's word for word out of 35. So we are agreeing with the test writer that the question is correct.
I'm gonna say one more time, obviously I don't have a dog in the fight either way. He's absolutely correct. My only issue with this question for him is, for John, is that's fine, right? Calcium chloride is the only one that's addressed in the protocols for cardiac arrest. My issue is that his reasoning does not match that. I mean, you referenced the wrong cardiac arrest in the first place. That's where I think this gets kind of weird. If he would have just said, hey, it's clearly calcium chloride because it was for a cardiac arrest, it's pretty much a dead duck right there, in my opinion, because he's saying, and it's word for word in there. My issue is his reasoning, and that's where I think it gets kind of weird. Maybe he meant to say something different in the reasoning, but that's not what he said, and that's where I think the question does get kind of weird, in my opinion. So.
The appellant had requested for answers A and B to both be counted as correct, but again, you can decide to go any other route. Leave it as is, as the marked answer is correct. We can throw the question out, accept multiple answers. If you'd like to have any discussion, anything that wasn't clear, we can do that now, or if there's a motion, we can go ahead and take that.
So if I read that correctly, the first part of the question is the MacGuffin, basically just to get him down a rabbit hole. Is the thing
These
that
guys
was-
talking.
Yeah.
No,
So if I read the question correctly, like the first part of the question is more of like, I don't call it a MacGuffin, but just to like lead you down a rabbit hole. But if you go and just read the question, in suspected hyperkalemia patients, what should be immediately administered? If you just read that part, it would get you right to your decision tree, which would get you right to your answer. Okay. My thought is to go as is with question.
Would you like to make that a
I'd
motion?
like to motion that. I would like to motion to go as is with question and with the defined response by the test writer, which is A.
Do we have a second?
I was still reviewing,
Okay.
just.
We can make a comment.
I would just want to make a comment for the record that Mr. Christo is exactly right, and that is how this test writer writes all of his questions,
Oh, yeah.
including the previous one. That's why he puts erroneous information in there, and sometimes it will get him. So just want to let you guys know that that is potentially something to consider, if not now, in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, my context is coming from the intelligence community. As an intelligence officer, questions were written like this purposely to confuse you and to be able to disseminate the best answer. So I'm very familiar with these type of questions, and I've written these type of questions before. And I saw the game right away just by reading it. I was like, oh, okay, that's why they did it. And it's easy to fall down that rabbit hole if you haven't been trained on those skills to differentiate that. So, over.
Thank you, Mr. Christo. And yes, in addition to that, again, I want to remind you guys that the purpose of this test is not to test you on your testing ability. The purpose of this test is supposed to be to test you on your knowledge of the skills of your position.
My motion still stands.
So we have a motion to keep the question as is, correct? And you seconded?
I have not seconded.
Oh, you have, okay, I'm sorry, okay, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't know if you had any more discussion.
No, I was along his train of thought there,
Sure.
we're looking at the questions and the level of questions, degree of difficulty, et cetera, what is the purpose of the question? I'm looking at the words that matching up in here, and okay. Okay, I am no medical expert, I'm just using the words I'm looking at in front of me, trying to figure this out. Any other discussion on this, or comments, concerns? I'm keying on the cardiac arrest part, is what I'm looking at. Any other questions, or?
I don't, I just read the back of this page where it says calcium chloride,
Right,
1 gram,
yeah. There's the calcium chloride and the sodium over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll make a second, to prove the, leave it as is.
Okay, so I have a motion to keep the question as is. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes, question stays as is.
Any additional public comment? Bill? All right, so that'll bring us to adjourn.
Any other issues we brought up today? Well, thank you for being here and looking and making comments. I appreciate that. If there's no further items to be taken care of today, do you have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Have a second? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.